sector and the private sector across multiple countries. So we've got quite a lot of experience to share with you there, hopefully. We're going to take you on a short exploratory journey around the ethos of team collaboration and performance. We're going to ask you just to slow down your thinking for this session. Some of you may be familiar with Daniel Kahneman's thinking fast and thinking slow. What we want to do in this session is really slow down our thinking, because once we take a position on something, we quite often stop thinking and stop, expanding our mind. So the request today is just to sit back and to listen and absorb it all in and reflect. We'll take you through our work, through our research and our practice. Our work is based on curiosity. It's around the work that Lalit and I have been doing for our collective 65 years, 60, a bit more than that, perhaps getting up to 70 years collective experience together. Not bad, my friend. So come with an open mind and an inquiring mind, because the very thing that's really important about this, the underpin, is around behaviours. And behaviour doesn't change because you have knowledge about what good behaviour is. It requires introspection, self-awareness, time, thoughtfulness, patience, reflection, deep thinking, and then a resolve to do something differently, and deliberate practice every day. So that's where we will go to. Collaboration is not about getting people together or asking them to work together. It is underpinned by a behavioural phenomenon with a strong philosophical root. And that's what we're going to explore with you today.
Excellent. Page down. Okay. So let's start with a quiz. The 2 years, 2020 and 2021, there were two major milestones in the progress made by humanity. One, of course, from our university, Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, which is now saving the humanity. And it took only 9 months, and 1/15th of the cost to design this vaccine and distribute it across more than 160 countries. And this was considered to be the art of moving the impossible to possible, because nobody had believed prior to this that you can create a vaccine in 9 months, and you can create a vaccine at a low cost. Those of you who are interested in space would have also heard that there is a rotorcraft, which is taking short hop flights in the Martian space. Once again, this kind of flying motion was considered to be absolutely impossible until a theoretical paper was published about 25 years back, and then the scientists and the engineers got down to once again turn an impossible thing into a possibility. If we were in a room, I would give you about a few minutes to think about the reasons. But here, I'm not looking at any of the comments that you might be posting. The obvious answer, many of you would think that it's the technology, it's a science. No. Underpinning all that effort that went into developing the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine and the Ingenuity helicopter on Mars was the collaboration. Collaboration across the members of a team, and collaboration between teams. So that's the power of collaboration if it is handled in the proper way, that it can turn impossibilities into possibilities. And I'm sure that in your own countries, you will have lots of such examples where a positive outlook on collaboration, a more philosophical and a behavioral outlook on collaboration has produced magical results. And if we had more time, we could have invited you to talk more about that. So we had a curiosity, Philippa and I, and we wanted to find out that why do some teams have comprehensive and great performance leading to brilliant outcomes? And brilliant outcomes here doesn't always mean turning impossibilities into possibilities, but brilliant outcomes can be the best in the class performance, best in the industry performance, efficient use of budget in civil services, high level of socioeconomic impact on the society. It all depends what kind of organization you are inside and how do you handle the collaboration and what for. So we equipped with this very, very, I would say, basic question. We try to find out that what is really the magic, what are the real causal factors which lead to brilliant outcomes at the team level and at the organization level. Some of you would know the answers. But then when we looked at the question in more in depth, we had to first of all figure out what do we mean by comprehensive and what do we mean by performance. These are two very big words. So we figured out, this was our first research finding, that high performance teams take a broader view of performance. So if I can get the laser, then I will use it here. Yeah. So for example, physical output is one of the most natural indicators of performance. Financial return is another one. Productivity, efficiency is another one. Motivation effects of working as part of a team is another indicator of high performance. Learning outcomes. Many organizations think it's pointless to do things if you're not learning. People well-being is a big factor in terms of determining the performance of teams and organizations. Team cohesion is very important. And then, of course, collateral damage to environment. How much waste are we creating? How much carbon footprint are we generating? And then, of course, the whole issue of innovations. So the very first clue in terms of understanding the nature of performance is to define it in as broad a terms as possible in terms of measurement. And here we found that there were shades of organizations. The underperforming organizations were most of the time, worried about physical output and financial return. They did not pay any attention whatsoever to how people are feeling. They did not care about whether people are learning anything. They did not care about what kind of collateral damage. Some of the in the middle band organizations, we did see some of the factors like productivity, efficiency, and collateral damage, yes, but it was very, very rare to find. Of course, it all also depends on which country you are selecting your sample, but it was very rare to see that the teams and the organizations are looking at the learning outcomes, the people well-being factors, the team cohesion, and the innovation in terms of assessing the performance. And a very good measure of all this is that if you pick up the annual report of the organization, you will find that some of these factors are covered in great details in well-known organizations, but on an average, I would say 70 to 80% organizations have a rather narrow perspective on performance, and that acts as a self-limitation in terms of having a very high level of performance from the teams and the organization. So keep this in mind. Philippa, you want to add something from the civil service perspective?
Well, so probably what I would offer, Lalit, is the example of my team when I joined my team. I've got a team of about 300 people across, obviously, as we said in the start, a range of disciplines. But even actually within HR, so most of my team are doing people-related human resources kind of work. They were all doing very well. Their outputs were very good. We've got income generation. We were running to budget. We were pretty efficient as a team. But the team was not working together. The team wasn't collaborating. So over here, recruitment would be doing something, and here talent would be doing something different, and there wasn't a join up. And when I joined the team, the first thing that I said to the team was, we will collaborate across our directorate, my team, basically across 300 of us. We will collaborate and we will work together. And by working together, we will produce a much better outcome for our customers, be they internal or external. We will create career pathways. You will be able to see how you can move through this team, how you can get promotion, how you can find interest in your job. And the other thing that underpins my team is that we are a learning directorate. Mm-hmm. So we are very clear that we learn all the time, and we learn through in the flow of work. We learn through opportunities that we create. We learn by ourselves. But we also learn through what happens in the team. And when things go wrong, we talk about them. And there is no shame. Nobody hides anything, which they were doing before. And then more things go wrong. We bring them out and we say, what's happened here? How can we fix it together? And we work collaboratively, and we move resources around. We use everybody's thinking, and we'll go on to that. That develops in the model. But that is how we now work as a team. So we cover all of those things, but we do it together, hand in glove.
Absolutely. And if I can use a technical phenomena called the internal synergies, when people well-being is high, it definitely feeds into a higher level of physical output and financial return. If people are learning and if they are creating new innovation, that would feed into the physical and the financial performance of the organization in the future periods. And if team cohesion is high, the motivational effects are high, that will also feed into the physical output and the financial return. So what we find here in this particular pyramidal structure is that broader is your perspective on what is the definition of performance, greater would be the performance of your team and the organization. I'm sure some of you may already be reflecting that, hey, why are we not doing this in our organization? And that is the question that we face when we offer seminars and masterclasses and run this process of embedding the culture for collaboration. So what else? What might be missing for your organization in terms of team collaboration and team performance? That was the next question. So what we discovered was that collaboration and performance happen across an ecosystem. We call it the ecosystem of performance. It's a new term that Philippa and I coined. And some of the things are familiar that you will recall, For example, if you look at this, the funny blue band here, we know from literature that purpose and vision of the organization, if it is inspiring, if it is meaningful, if it is characterized by making a difference in the society, then it will inspire your employees and it will help them to deliver a higher level of performance. Your ethics, your governance, your corporate citizenship. So all this is very well known. And so we, in our research, we simply took it for granted that, okay, these factors definitely contribute towards ecosystem, towards the high level of performance as part of the ecosystem. Then we also know from research literature that team resources, clarity in terms of team tasks, and the working tools that we give to the teams also contribute significantly to their performance. And then, of course, the role of the team leader is very important. But then in our research, we found something very interesting. There were hospitals with extremely compelling purpose and vision of the organization. There were very strong civil service organizations with very good set of ethics and governance standards. They had fantastic working tools like collaboration platforms, but they were still not able to deliver the performance. And that is where we wanted to find out that what else is really responsible for performance. And this is what we discovered, that the real underpinnings of the collaboration, the team collaboration, which is the basis for high level of performance, is embedded in 4 commonly used words. The first word is respect. The second one is trust. The third one is mutual understanding. And the fourth one is kindness. Now, during our research, we identified there were about 16 behavioral factors with very strong philosophical history. I mean, Plato wrote about respect during his times. Socrates has talked about trust. The modern day psychometricians help us to understand the competencies of the team members. And kindness forever has been part of the religious books and also in the recent times, a lot of corporate literature. And I was quite amazed this time. I was in UK last week that how post-pandemic, a lot of different organizations in UK, as soon as you enter, you see these 2 words, respect and kindness. And I decided to take a series of pictures of each of those posters, and I made it a point to speak to the people that why do you display it so prominently? He said, look, this is our way of collaboration and delivering high level of customer service and satisfaction. So, and then of course, all this is underpinned by what we call as the psychological safety. If the team members do not have the psychological safety, if they are working with some sense of insecurity, then once again, no matter how much respect, how many different strong protocols of respect, trust and mutual understanding and kindness you have in your team, you may still not get performance. Now, on daily basis, you may not pay too much attention to these words because they have become so trivial that even the business schools never spend time to go into the history of the word respect or trust or kindness. Some business schools are doing now. And we try to, as part of our research, we try to figure out that what are the different dimensions of respect and how does it really promote collaboration and performance. So that is the the sort of second part of our research that we have worked on. Philippa, any comments?
Put myself off mute. Now I was just having a look at the chat, Lalit, because you can't see that. So we have one question, which is where would performance fulfillment as an outcome to performance fit in the triangles, going back to the triangle? Purpose fulfillment, and I would see that very much in the motivational effects.
Yeah. Yeah. I should have mentioned that that was just a representative pyramid. You can add many more variables, actually. And there are organizations which have, because this is more of a symbolic representation on a PowerPoint kind of a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's another question about leadership, leadership essentials for team performance, but I think we'll come on to that as we go through the presentation. Yeah. We can definitely come back to that question. But yeah, I mean, you know, part of that is obviously the vision and the galvanizing that we've talked about. But the other through the model is ensuring that, is creating the environment for that.
But one myth we were able to look at in great details, a lot of literature says that leaders drive performance. That is not true at all. The real performance is based on the nature of collaboration, and that is driven by the behavior of the team members. That is what we found. I mean, some of the underperforming organizations had great leaders. They were performing all the expected roles, but still the team members were not able to come together and work as a team because there were some kind of toxic behaviors. And once again, there is a lot of literature on toxic behaviors on the part of team leaders, whereas we found that there were a lot of toxic behavior amongst the team members in underperforming organizations. And that was, in a way, raising very high barriers in the form of collaboration. So let's take a, go ahead, Philippa.
I was just going to say, sort of a simple example of that is in a Formula One pit stop.
Yes.
You know, the dependency on team, everybody getting their bit right at that moment in time. The failure of one is the failure of all. And therefore, you know, they know before they go in, they know what they need to do. They've had the leadership, they've had the direction, everything. But it is in that moment that everybody needs to come around and coalesce and work together and understand what everybody else is doing to know when it's their moment to do their thing.
Yeah.
And that's a really good sort of micro example of what we mean.
Absolutely. And in some hospitals where the mortality rates in the surgical wards are high, once again, we found that the nature of collaboration was pretty much diluted because of the behavior of certain members of the team. And these members of the team had certain personality issues, which nobody had tried to address at all. So, so we are going to focus on these 4 because, as I said before, that there were 16 different behavioral elements. But when we did the statistical analysis and a little bit of clustering of other behavioral factors, we could, club them into 4 broad categories: the respect, the trust, and the mutual understanding and kindness. So let's see how these elements, or the so-called pillars of collaboration and performance, what is the dynamics behind these? So just to make a little simple, what we call as the picture of upward alignment. So when respect, trust, mutual understanding, and kindness, they are at their highest level in a team, it results into deep collaboration and it results into high performance. Now, what is the meaning of our deep collaboration? This is a very significant contribution that we have made. Deep collaboration is a non-transactional form of collaboration where nobody is working for their self-interest. Deep collaboration is a process in which people are seeking collaboration rather than demanding collaboration. So there are many different behavioral attributes of deep collaboration. I believe there is somebody who's raising the hand.
Sir, we can take the questions at the end.
Okay.
Normally we do that.
Okay. So please keep this in mind that there are behavioral shades of collaboration. And not all collaborations, all forms, all shades of collaboration can result into high performance. Okay. So what are our reflections on respect? Philippa, do you want to come in?
Yes, I think, the definition of respect it can be quite personal. But the way that we think about respect is about it opening the gates and taking down barriers. So it's about accepting people for who they are, and valuing their opinions, seeing people's authority. And authority is not in a hierarchical sense, but in what they are bringing, their expertise or their thinking or their challenge even. And it is about adjusting and adapting to others. And believing in diversity of thought, and not discriminating. So that's really important. So it opens the doors for allow people to come in and be met, as it were. And it also facilitates human affinity. So the way that we feel about each other, the confidence that we have, and a sense of personal pride. Mm-hmm. So as we are, humans are collective animals, it's really, really important that we manage to facilitate those things, because it raises our self-esteem. So we all know that if we feel respected, it raises our self-esteem. If we have higher self-esteem, we feel more valued, and that means that we will give more. So it's not just about the way that we interact with each other, it's the impact that it has on the way we collaborate and we perform. Because if we feel respected and we feel valued, we are more likely to share more of the knowledge and the experience or the challenge or the questions that we have. And that is what leads to better collaboration, and ultimately better performance.
And I particularly enjoyed talking to members of a team where they said that, look, in our team, every individual's opinions matter a lot. In every meeting, we go out of the way to invite everybody to express their opinion before we make any decisions. So how the first pillar of collaboration, respect, impacts on the behavior of the people? And this is based on our own research as well as literature review. So as Philippa said, that when we respect a team member, it triggers affinity and affection. And this affinity and affection is extremely deep, and it is almost like telling somebody that, look, here we are as a member of a team, and we must be able to work together. We must be able to demonstrate our closeness to each other. We must be able to express our love to each other. And that provides a solid basis for collaboration. And respect fuels strong relationships. It encourages exchange of ideas, feelings, and work-related conversations. That's very important. And by the way, in underperforming teams, the nature of work-related conversation in terms of their comparative proportion was much less compared to political type of conversation about the bosses and the senior management and national politics. So be careful on that. Respect enhances self-confidence of the object as well as the subject. This I love very much. And every time I wanted to feel confident in relation to somebody else, the first thing I would do is demonstrate my respect to that person. And it is the first step towards building the trust. Prevalence of respect in a team creates highly productive team culture. And giving and receiving respect boosts personal well-being. This, again, is a very important variable. You show disrespect to somebody and you literally kill the day for that person. And we don't know what kind of a deep psychological injury we inflict on people when we demonstrate disrespect to them in the presence of others, or even in one-to-one situations. So be careful on that aspect of teamwork. The second one, reflections on trust, Philippa.
Yeah, so trust, I mean, trust is really important, and this is about building the bridges. So we've opened the door and now we're building the bridge, and it is the basis of effective communications and actually constructive challenge, all of which are really, really important for innovation and well-being and productivity and great performance. But quite often trust is something that is going on in our heads. So it is about the way we feel about other people. And we kind of get it backwards sometimes, because we sort of wait for, it's our expectation of others to show us that they are trustworthy. And maybe the flip side of that is going into a relationship with somebody and saying, I will trust you because of all of these reasons, and we will build upon that, rather than waiting for somebody to demonstrate why they are worthy of our trust. So it's flipping it around and taking it out of our own minds and into something that is more community driven. But when we have trust, our inhibitions are reduced because we feel safe. And trust is hugely important to creating that environment of psychological safety. When we are safe, we will share more, we will give more of ourselves, give more of what we are doing. We don't feel we have to work over here, because we know if we've had a brilliant idea, that it will be recognised by the group. Not somebody will not take it for their own betterment. They will share that and they will recognise the people, and therefore we move to better performance as well. So it promotes great problem solving. You've got great trust. You can sit in a room and you can problem solve and you can get everything out on the table. And probably linking back to my example with my team in the way that we learn, because we have high trust, we will go, oh, something's gone wrong, I've done this. And nobody feels ashamed. Nobody feels like something's going to happen to them, or they're going to do less well, or I'm going to appreciate them less than their colleague. They'll genuinely come and go, something's happened, I need you now collectively to help us get this better. And that's how we fix things almost instantly in my team. Whereas before, they would go on for days and days and days, possibly weeks or months, and then get uncovered. And they'd have got worse as we'd gone along.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And in underperforming organizations, they use the term trust. But when you ask them, how do you really build the trust? They are at a loss to say how. So once again, a term which is high in circulation, but very poor in actual implementation. So fair play and information transparency are amongst the practices for building trust and reaching out to people, building bonds, So let's see what our research and what the literature has indicated about the impact of trust. Vastly improves the opportunities for cooperation, and that is what we are looking for. This is a very interesting paper by DeMock, published in 2020. Trust makes cooperation less complicated. I love this. 73-75 research, 2 papers by Luhmann, that when you trust people within the team, you reduce the complexity of the teamwork. When trust is justified, it promotes relationships, knowledge, and autonomy, etc. And as Philippa said, trust encourages and promotes interdependence, which is another principle for collaboration. And there's a Harvard Business Review article on incomplete leaders. That means none of us are complete from the perspective of being able to achieve high levels of performance. So trust on the basis of principle of complementarity justifies formation of teams. That means a team is not a mathematical sum of standalone competencies. It's a soup of complementarities, and these complementary competencies are embedded in individuals. And the more this soup is tasteful, based on respect and trust, greater would be the impact of this soup. Then teams must nurture, build, and sustain trust for high performance. Once again, long back, it was indicated that trust is a great contributor to high performance. This is a very interesting pillar of collaboration, reflections on mutual understanding. Philippa, you want to come in and then?
Yes, and then I will hand back to you, Lalit. Yeah. But this is about exchanging. So this is about really, understanding, as in the title. And there's two elements to it. There is the understanding of individuals, where they're coming from, what their aspirations are, why they're in work. That is really, really important. And that links back to the motivations piece. But this is very much in terms of collaborating and performance about how the competencies that individuals have. And I suppose the question that we ask is, how well do you know what competencies, capabilities people have around you? And how much is that based on actually the job they're doing today, the interactions you might have with them in a meeting, whatever they're doing? Do you actually know a bit more in depth about where they've been, what they've done, the experience they've had, projects that they have led, challenges? So that real understanding, that deep understanding, allows us to create a chain, which Lalit will now talk to, which will really bolster both the collaboration, but make sure that we are using the expertise and the competencies that we have.
Absolutely. So the interesting feature here is that we are all familiar with psychometrics, and it's a sort of a tool for understanding the competencies of individual members of the team, little realizing that that's a static measurement, and the collaboration demands integration of these competencies for developing team capabilities leading to performance. And that's not going to happen. So what is happening in underperforming organizations? We discovered an interesting phenomena which we called as people are climbing ladders. They are not lending their best competencies to the team's performance. They were holding back some of their competencies because they were in competition with other members of the team in terms of climbing the organizational ladder. So you can't say that, look, I have recruited this guy who has fantastic competencies, that he or she will necessarily be a very important member of the team and result into creation of dynamic team capabilities. So that was a very interesting finding that we made. Now, we all know that there is the whole notion of value creation. We use the term value chain, and that value chain in a way represents the high performance to some extent. And earlier I used the term deep collaboration. Now here what we see is that if mutual understanding doesn't result into a human competency chain, you cannot reach the superior value creation. You cannot reach the deep collaboration. So what is a human competency chain? The human competency chain is that many of you would know this. This is the Beatles' 1960 Liverpool, the rock band. So there are 4 members in the rock band, and each one of them have multiple skills, ranging from songwriting to playing bass guitar or drums or whatever. And they were able to create a human competency chain, and it was done in such a seamless manner that they produced some of the greatest hits of their time. And this is one of the biggest challenge in any team work, that are the team members able to create a competency chain out of the sum total of all the individual competencies that members of the team have. And this comes as a result of respect and trust. Of course, there are other hidden factors which we may not have discovered. There may be factors in relation to a kind of a friendship element, for example, whatever. So this is area which is still open for research, and if any of the organization is interested in developing this work, we'll be quite happy. That how team members create human competency chain in a dynamic manner so that it leads to a very high level of value creation. So remember, underpinning the value chain is the human competency chain, which is not a arithmetical sum of individual competencies. It is a more interactive process of microsecond adjustment. So if you pick up a music book in the Western School of Music, you will see how the human competency chain evolves on microsecond basis. Reflections on kindness. So we published a book in 2018, which is done quite well. Sorry, Philippa, do you want to come in?
Yes, I was just going to actually say on the previous about the competencies, because we talked about values. If you understand the competencies that people have, the capabilities they have, it gives you a deeper understanding of values and how people can connect, whether it be technological or social or through empathy. And that really helps as well build that competency chain. In terms of kindness, I mean, there's sort of this is the one that often generates a lot of conversation, isn't it, Lalit, when we take it into organisations? Because people go, well, what do we mean by that? Is it sort of being nice to everybody, but how can I be? I need to get things delivered. We need to work together. So what do we mean by kindness? And some people feel quite nervous around kindness, I would say. So I think it's really important, particularly as leaders. And
Philippa, the microphone.
Lakshmi, please put all others on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Is that working?
Yeah, working now.
Okay.
Sorry.
There we go. It's better. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
Okay, perfect. Shall I start? I don't know where I got to.
Okay.
I don't know if people could hear what I was saying. So it's about asking how, rather than saying, how can I get everyone to help me perform and be successful? it's about us all as individuals, and indeed the leader and the team, going, how can I bring out the best in others? How can I help people? And how can I treat people equally? So that's part of it. But as a leader, we have to set the conditions for people to thrive, and then we manage our people therein. So it's very clearly about, here are the conditions in which you need to thrive, and then I will manage you. So quite often people go, well, if I'm going to lead with kindness and if I'm going to be kind, it means I can't tell people that they're not performing well. I can't move people out of the organisation or into a different role. That's not at all the case. You can have very high standards and still have deep devotion. So the two things don't conflict. It is not an either or, it is an and more of. So you can have both, an and both, rather than an either or. So you can have very high standards because you are setting those as the conditions in which people thrive. They've obviously got to be realistic. Absolutely. And then you can manage people through that. But if people aren't meeting those conditions, then you enable them, and this is where the kindness comes through. You allowed people to understand that, to be managed, or to move on with dignity, and to find them something else, but the both of them will come together.
Absolutely. So this is not about condoning lack of performance. It's more about taking a positive view of somebody making mistakes, and then giving them another opportunity to learn from the mistakes that they have committed, and helping them to save their face, and helping them to learn based on their mistakes. And that is almost a very dynamic aspect of any team, because teams are human systems. By definition, they are supposed to make mistakes. If they are not making mistakes, then they are not doing creative work. And this is another aspect of life in Oxford University, that you are allowed to make mistakes all the time, as long as you are willing to learn out of those. And we found exactly the same kind of touch of kindness in high-performing organizations. Now, we have written quite a lot on this, so I won't take too much time. Basically, kindness creates happiness, higher motivation, all the points about when you empathize with people who have made mistakes, greater stability. People don't have that element of fear when they make mistakes. And there is one very important one. Yes, so impact on the performance of the company, reduce transaction cost, better social and economic performance. And so this is an international study done in 65 countries, and it is quoted in one of our books. So I won't take too much time on that. This is an example of making impossible happen. This is the Mars helicopter team. It is actually, they're coming from different organizations, and each organization has sent a team. And when you talk to them, in fact, in one of our new book, we have done a case study on the Mars helicopter team. And the very first thing they said was that we had a huge respect, because for more than 10 years, we were only learning by making mistakes and by respecting the mistakes we were all making. We were able to thrive during the pandemic because we trusted each other, even though we were not meeting anybody. We understood the mutual competencies of everybody, and we were able to connect them in a dynamic way. So all the four pillars of the collaboration and high performance we could observe in this team. Now, this might send a wrong message to you, that these 4 pillars are like holy grail of high performance and high collaboration and high performance. We don't want to make that claim. Maybe there is something else which we have not managed to discover. So some of you may know about it. Please do share it. And just to summarize our presentation of the framework. So respect opens the door. Trust helps in building the bridges to solve the problem. Mutual understanding creates a human chain. And kindness, empathizing helps to people save their face and learn from the mistakes. All these processes are pretty dynamic and very deeply embedded in, there was a time when, I won't mention the name of this company because I sat through their presentation and they came and they said, we have a collaboration platform, you invest 2 million pounds and your collaboration would improve, not realizing that collaboration is a psychological process and it's not based on technical platforms. So you can sense who I'm talking about, because many such collaboration platforms have come into practice in many organizations. Now, a lot of organizations have asked us to implement these 4 pillars in their organization. So one of the first things that we shared with all our partner organizations is that collaboration does not happen merely through physical and technical coupling. So you are most welcome to invest 2 million pounds on buying a collaboration platform, as long as you also promote psychological and sociological affinity amongst the team members. And here we come to the definition of collaboration. We call it as the spirit where team members accept and respect, trust and complement each other, and exercise kindness to perform team tasks and accomplish comprehensive performance outcomes. Philippa, do you want to come in here? Principles that we designed for, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I think we sort of covered it, but the sort of sum up is this slide here. And it is about us and the way that we behave in an organisation. So you can put posters and your values. I'm sure lots of you work in organisations where you've got values and they're probably plastered all over the walls and on all of your company literature, but that won't change behaviours. That won't make people be like that or follow that if they've chosen not to. It's about these 4 behaviours. That's what we found. If those are prevalent in the way that people are behaving, the way that people are interacting, and the environment that is created for them to enable them to behave like that, that is what is going to move through collaboration to performance. So it's about an individual looking at themselves in change. That's where it starts from first. And then you can move to more collective change.
Absolutely. And the members of the team write the do's and don'ts of respect, of trust, mutual understanding, and kindness. And they create a sort of a collective template, and they move from one stage to the higher stage to the next stage. So again, a dynamic and an evolutionary process. Okay, so now time for some discussion. How much time do we have? Rajesh?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for an insightful and a very, very interesting presentation on the original work which was done by you and Philippa. And thank you very much for taking time. We have in our gathering some of our very senior members and also our past presidents which are present. Start with, I will request Ms. Chaya Sehgal, who is the past president of Women Management Associations, if she can share her thought or if she has any query on the topic. Chayaji, if you can unmute.
Yes. Thank you, Rajeshji. Professor Lalit and Professor Philippa, thank you very much for a beautiful presentation, a deep thought to reflect upon over a weekend. The deep collaboration, I think it does begin with deep reflection somewhere. I have been thinking over each and every slide that you presented. One of my observations I have also placed in the chat box, that this culture of high performance, which is founded upon respect, trust, mutual understanding, and kindness, is nurtured by a congruence of vision, aspirations, value system, and purpose of the team members, so that the overall performance, collaborative performance of the team would be far, far greater than the sum total of individual total performance of the team members. What impressed me the most was that all these four aspects of respect, trust, mutual understanding, and kindness are so nebulous. Each one of us is aware of it, but each one of us is ignorant of it in some way. Each one of us is experiencing at times how it works so well for us. And each one of us at times just feel perplexed as to why it did not work, though it worked earlier in some scenario. We are going through this journey, and we are learning, we are evolving as individuals. But the point that I'm trying to put across is that the culture flows from the top. As much as it is painstaking to build a culture of performance, what's more important is later to nurture it and also continue promoting it through successive leaderships. Now, time and again in the history of mankind, we have seen that, when the leadership changes, whether it is of nations, whether it is in big corporates, or whether it is in big organizations, the culture does undergo change. And we have seen at times one of these factors, or sometimes all these four factors, taking a beating. And at times they are curated and they are nurtured further, and what I should say, an exceptional performance getting delivered, once in a decade or so. So somewhere I do feel that the team performance and leadership is connected with each other. And I experienced this culture in Mayo Clinic, where I was stationed for 15 days for some medical reason of somebody from the family. All these four things are very, very clear over there. And there are proper code of conduct manuals in which these aspects are defined, and training programs take place for the employees on how to behave with each other, so that respect, trust, mutual understanding, and kindness can be furthered. I would like you to tell us from your experience of consulting the big corporates, that number one thing that you have seen that is working to build respect, to build trust, to build mutual understanding, and to build the kindness, which is common to all. That one tip each, please. Thank you.
Philippa,
one tip. Do you want me to go first? I would say, if I'm going to go on one, I would say it's talking about it. Because as you say, it can be quite nebulous. So actually having the conversations, and that's part of the methodology that we use, is having conversations about what do we mean by this. So that broader understanding, I think, is absolutely key.
Absolutely. So what Philippa is saying is, corporates spend, I'm sure Ms. Sehgal would also be doing this, whether you are in an academic institution or corporate world, spending millions of rupees on, doing executive education programs on transformational leadership, transformational change. What I would recommend is, please do run a half-day session on respect and how we can benefit from respect. And get one of your junior executive to do literature review and research of the philosophical literature. What is it that the wise people have been talking about respect? And you will find that the deep wisdom that we already know about respect holds the clues and the messages, powerful messages that can benefit any organization, any team to a great extent. Similarly, you can do a half-day workshop and it doesn't cost anything, because you don't need experts to do you would need an expert to do a strategic leadership program, but you don't need an expert to do a session on trust, because all the wisdom about trust is already there. Of course, mutual understanding tends to be more of a technical process. And that's where you have to change the myth that every organization believes in, that assessing the static competencies of the executives is good enough for performance. That myth you have to break. You have to study the dynamic nature of how these individual competencies are interacting with each other to create a human competency chain. So that's, again, a process that can be discussed in the organization. And kindness, again, a half-day workshop on kindness. I mean, these are not big investment items. These are such interesting words. Somehow we have forgotten their value. And guess who is discovering the importance of these? Ministry of Defense, UK government. Civil Services, UK government. Education system in Malaysia. Corporations in Southeast Asian countries. So it is in a way trying to focus the whole effort of understanding the nature of the relationship between collaboration and performance, how to create the deep collaboration. What are the pillars that fuel this deep collaboration? It's the sense of appreciation about these interesting structures that we have presented today. So there is absolutely nothing very financially intense commitment. So it's all a process of, okay, let's try to think from another perspective. Let's try to think how we can improve the team collaboration. How can we create deep collaboration? How can we create a human competency chain? So if you ask those questions, I'm sure the stimuli for studying these 4 pillars would definitely happen.
Thank you, sir. One question is there in the chat box from Mr. Pramod Argawal, which says that where would purpose fulfillment as an outcome is equal to performance fit in this triangle?
Where
would purpose fulfillment as an outcome is equal to performance fit in this triangle which you showed in the beginning?
Yeah, as I said before, that it is not it is just a symbolic graphic. It does not include all the factors.
It would come under the motivation effects, I think.
Yes.
And indeed team cohesion to a degree, I would think.
Yeah,
and well,
yes.
For example, on this side, we have got social impact. Here, we don't have the example of, social justice, for example. So this is just a symbolic pyramid. It's not a comprehensive pyramid.
There is another question, sir, from Mr. Pramod Solanki, which says that what are the major determinants of these factors spread across the ecosystem? Is it the CEO's own values and attitudes, or is it an interplay of many factors within the organization?
So you have to look at the ecosystem. And as I said before, there is enough literature which says that all these factors, purpose, vision, ethics, goals, strategy, objectives, good policies, values, and culture, they have impact on performance. There is no doubt about that. The configuration of the team has big impact on performance. But the point that we are trying to draw from this ecosystem chart is that there are organizations where all this was in place. For example, a hospital, for example, a civil service, all this was there, and yet the teams were not performing. So to say, there is a lot of literature these days. Purpose has become such a fashionable word. No doubt it is a powerful word, but it does not mean that it's going to work if you do not create a culture of performance at the team level. Yes, if it's a one-person show, purpose can definitely inspire you as an individual, definitely. We have seen that in the case of social change agents, social reformers, absolutely. Yeah. Gandhi, for example, was driven by a purpose, and he had a great vision for India. So indeed, but then when you're talking about organizational domains where you have teams, so performance is driven not just by these abstract ideas or these resource-based ideas. The performance is driven by these psychological and philosophical underpinnings of the human behavior.
Yeah. And I think, I was going to say, I think the things in the blue box are important, but as you will know in your own organizations, they don't necessarily drive people to perform. So if people find themselves in their team and they have trust and all of those things, trust, respect, understanding, obviously, and kindness in their team, that is what will motivate them to work. So a leader can create an environment or not create an environment, indeed. So if I use the example of me and my team, I will say to my team, I will make sure you have top cover. And when I say that to them is I will protect them from the noise that comes in from the organization that might stop them doing their work. So that's sort of my big, protection for them. But then they need to get on and do the work. And I can't, even if I'm saying I want us to collaborate, I want us to respect, we are a learning directorate. If they are not then demonstrating that between them, it's all very well that I say at a senior level, and I've had this in my team before. I've had people who report into me who don't espouse the same principles, and then that creates entire sort of disruption within the team or team members, and it creates entire disruption because people say, well, it's all very well, Philippa, you say that we should trust each other, but I don't trust that person because they don't behave in any way, shape or form, or I don't behave in any way, shape or form that would allow people to trust me. So it is really important at a team level. And so leaders are important and they do set conditions, but equally you can have poor leaders in an organization, but a team will still rally and they will still be brilliant because they have deep purpose in what they do and working with that team together, regardless of somebody above them who isn't necessarily behaving in the right way.
Thank you. I have my senior colleague and our executive committee member, Mr. Jagmohan Rishi, had put some thoughts in the chat box. Jagmohan, can you unmute and ask the question?
Sir, I'm at a noisy place, so if you can read it, would be better.
I can do that. I can do so. I thought since you are in the, so if I will just try and find out the questions. Just give me a moment. So Jagmohan had asked, what are top 3 leadership essentials for team performance? Professor Lalit?
Yeah, so if you look at the, we are talking about the team leader, right?
Yes. The top
So,
3 leadership essentials for team performance.
Yes, so as we said before, that if you look at the ecosystem chart, there are 9 different types of roles which are expected of the team leaders. And the orchestrator role, the inspirer role, the enabler, mediator, curator, carer, educator, mentor, and evangelist. So once again, while reading these 9 roles, again, Philippa and I have published a paper on this. We are mindful of the fact that the roles of the team leader may still not galvanize the nature of collaborative force, the deep collaborative force that we are looking for. For example, take the mediator role. Suppose the team leader is not playing a fair role as a mediator. What will happen? It will politicize the team. Team leader is not enabling, not playing the role of enabler. He's not solving the problems. He's not providing the level of support that they need in terms of overcoming some of the day-to-day barriers, whether they are social barriers or resource barriers or economic barriers or even behavioral barriers. Behavioral barrier could mean an employee or a team member is misbehaving all the time, does not turn up in time for the meetings. So conceptually, we find that these are highly idealized kind of roles, but then it puts a lot of, I would say, special commitment on the part of team leader to be able to play these roles. In other words, just to summarize this long worded answer, that the team leader role is becoming more complex, it is becoming more diverse, and yet it is not a guarantee that it will result into deep collaboration, because there may be other factors working at this level, at the orange band level, which are not promoting deep collaboration.
So, thank you, sir. And if there are any other questions anybody would like to ask, person can raise hand. Otherwise, we are coming close to a session, and I will request Professor Vigyan Verma to share his thoughts and present the vote of thanks.
Thank you so much. Good evening and good afternoon. Thank you, Professor Lalit and Professor Philippa, for a very insightful and impactful talk on collaboration. You know what, I've been on the driver's seat of a few business schools for the past 2 decades, and ask me how much collaboration makes a difference. Especially, you know, like in many business schools or education institutions, the faculty members tend to work in silos. You know, they do collaborate, but they still work in silos. That's a big issue. And look at the chat box, you know, with such kind of deep questions which people are asking. It really means that the session has been extremely impactful, and I'm sure it will leave everybody keep thinking this weekend, you know, in which way can we optimize the way we live by collaborating. And when I look at the sun, I just read this quote somewhere, is that it actually collaborates with the soil to bring flowers in the earth. The collaboration is the essence of life. The wind, the bees, the flowers work together to spread the pollen. And that's how, the world remains, nice and fine. But, unfortunately, I've seen in especially education institutions and many organizations also, with a few rare exceptions, organizations, executives, and rank and file employees everywhere I've seen, they tend to historically work in a piecemeal fashions. They have lacked a holistic framework to fully understand the remarkable power of these applications, much less unleash them. I don't know, blame it to ignorance, but absolutely no malice towards anyone. But thank you, Professor Lalit, the kind of research, and Professor Philippa, it does provide the essential gestalt for the evening and for all of us. Your research model gave us a nice and decent perspective to look at the new ways, to look at the new way to look at these. I've noted down all those things, and I'm definitely going to conduct a half-day workshop debating about the kindness and all those things which you mentioned, the trust. What a very collaborative environment in the business school which I'm leading today. I would say that this timely, ambitious, and provocative work of yours, it really offers a lot of concrete tips to corporates, individuals, groups, everywhere, to transform the world. When with this COVID-19 hit us, the pandemic hit us in 2019, I picked up a book written by James Berry those days. It's called The Greatest Influenza of the World. It runs into about 226 pages. And it's all about the pandemic, which hit the Spanish flu, which hit in 1918. It's a very, very powerful book. It's an award-winning historian, James Berry. He talks about a lot of tales of the magisterial in a very nice and decent, well-researched book. And Barry captures the sense of panic and the despair which overwhelmed the entire community, in many parts of the world as such. And what does he conclude? He says, is that someday, whenever, long back, he wrote this book in 2004 and talked about 1918. And he said, the world will keep getting hit by these kinds of viruses. But then it's not just a medical care which will be important, but it's more of a political, collaborative and environment which will make the difference such. And I guess today you've seen this kind of, there was a very nice example which was mentioned that in the pit, it would normally take 13 seconds to change the tire, but then it just takes, with the help of collaboration, just 3 seconds. So it's making a difference all over the world. I only hope and pray that someday even political parties collaborate with each other to make our life much better. So thank you once again for a very, very insightful and impactful talk on behalf of the Bombay Management Association, our president, Mr. Rajesh Sharma, our past presidents, and all the members of the executive committee, and the ones who are attending the talk today. It was absolutely brilliant. I've made a note of a lot of things which I will never forget. Thanks a lot.
Okay, so our new book will be released on 21st November. Mm-hmm. And Sunil Deshmukh, who's attending this webinar, he has contributed a chapter here. Sunil, are you there? No, he's left.
He was there.
I'm there. Hi, Lalit. I'm here. Thank you. Thank you for informing the August gathering that I have a small contribution in your big book.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it will be available on Amazon.
It will be available. There has been a great demand for the book, it seems, from the Indian big business houses. So they're considering an economy edition of the book in India, but it will be 2024. But if you want the UK and the American edition, then I will ask Sunil to send you a voucher which will get you a pre-publication 40% discount.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Sunil, maybe you can share the details with the office of the Management Association.
Sure. I'll try to do that. No problem.
That'll be great.
Sunilji, you are based out of Bombay? you don't have to pay the shipping charges because it's all done by the.
And on top of that, you get 40% discount.
Yes, you get 40%. See, what they have done is because this is a charity project, all the royalties from the book are going to Oxfam International. The publisher said that we would also like to contribute something. I said, I had thousands of alumni all over the world. They said, okay, we will give them a special voucher for hefty discount. So it's a contribution from the publisher.
Very nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. And as an alumni of Oxford, I am sure I will also get.
Of course. Absolutely.
Thank you. So thank you very much, sir. And especially when you were not feeling well and you have taken time out for us. It is really incredible, sir. And
I had to speak slowly because my throat was irritating.
I know. I could see that during the presentation, and it talks a lot about your commitment. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Philippa.
Professor. Thank you, Philippa.
Philippa, thank you so much for this lovely contribution. And you can see that there is a great degree of interest in India. It's not just about UK and Southeast Asia or other countries. So don't be surprised if you are in India talking to some of the big corporations. But it's a big challenge in India because I was a professor at Delhi University, and then I was also on the advisor to Ravi Kant, who was the chair of the IIM
Planning Commission.
No, Ravi Kant, his brother.
Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah.
Vice chairman of Tata Motors.
Okay. Yeah.
So, the corporate world has, and the business school, as one of your colleagues pointed out, has to come out of so many well-entrenched myths before any change can take place. So hopefully it will happen. So things do change.
Well, I shared my concerns,
So thank you very much, sir. Thank you so much.
All right. Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day ahead.
Thank you, Philippa. Thank you.